This video will address the process for obtaining client or guardian consent once a new referral is processed. As discussed in the video about client referrals, there are two ways that new client referrals are made. The referral is either initiated and completed by the facility staff, or the referral is recommended by or endorsed by facility staff and completed by the TCS clinician. The same applies to obtaining the consents. In some instances, the staff will follow through with the client or guardians for signing the consents after the referral is processed, or it may be left to the clinician to get the appropriate signatures after a referral is processed. In either case, the clinician should not see the client for assessment until they have the signed consents in hand or have the understanding that they are signed and in the mail. Or in some instances, a verbal consent may be given by a guardian with the guarantee that the consent paperwork is to be submitted in short order. It's always recommended that you check with the TCS intake coordinator prior to seeing a client when you do not have the signed consents in hand. So let's look again at where to obtain the referral consent forms, which includes the Notice of Privacy Practices packet. For the TCS clinician, the packet can be accessed through their field kit or through DocTracker or the TCS website. And facility or school staff can only access the packet through the TCS website. You may need to walk the staff person through the procedure on how to access the documents. So to access the packet from the TCS website, either Google search the Counseling Source Incorporated or use a different preferred search engine and open the home page or use this link shown on the screen. From the home screen, click on the Referrals and Fees. And then click the indicated text for accessing the forms packet. And then you'll choose the appropriate packet as needed and double-click to open the packet for download or printing. If you're working in schools, be certain to select the correct packet for a child, noting that there is a specific packet for children in the Middletown schools, which is just north of Cincinnati. The referral form and Notice of Privacy Practices are the same for all school systems. However, the consent forms are unique for Middletown schools. And note that the included Notice of Privacy Practices packet that is to be given to the client or guardian is the same for all clients. So for the clinician to access the forms from DocTracker, open DocTracker home screen and click on the Reference Material and Help icon. Select the Referrals Packet tab. And then select the appropriate referral packet for your needs. Double-click on it to open the packet. Now let's take a look at the information required on the school's consent forms for the non-Middletown schools. On page 1 of the consent, all information requested should be completed. On page 2, complete the client's name and date at the top and fill in the estimated charges. This information is obtained from the TCS intake coordinator. And then you'll obtain the appropriate signatures and complete the remaining information that's requested in this lower area. Page 3 is the acknowledgement of receipt of the privacy notice, which is the last 6 pages of the packet. And that packet of privacy notices is to be given to the guardian at the time of their signature. And then you will obtain the appropriate signatures as indicated on the screen. After seeing the client, complete the bottom part of page 2 with all information to be provided. Note that the date you enter here will become the client's admission date in DocTracker and should be the date that you actually saw the client for assessment. And shown here is the first page of the Notice of Privacy Practices, and it is 6 pages total. This is the same information for all new clients in schools and in long-term care. Now let's look at the information required on the Middletown School forms. Again, all information requested on page 1 of the form should be completed. Note that the the wording of the general consents and acknowledgments is somewhat different here than for the other schools. And again, page 2, complete the client's name and date at the top and fill in the estimated charges. Note that the offerings for charges are expanded over what is offered for other non-Middletown schools. And again, this information for the dollar amounts would be obtained from the TCS intake coordinator. After all that is filled in, obtain the appropriate signatures and complete the remaining information that's requested below. And once again, the third page is the acknowledgement of the receipt of privacy notice, as with the Middletown schools. And you'll obtain the appropriate signatures after handing the packet over to the guardian. And again, after seeing the client, complete the bottom of page 2 with all the information to be provided. And the date that you enter here will become the client's admission date in DocTracker and should reflect the date that you actually saw them for the assessment. Now let's take a look at the information required on the consent forms for adults in long-term care. All information requested on page 1 of the form should be completed as before, and use the facility address and phone number rather than their personal home information. Note again that the wording of the general consents and acknowledgments is somewhat different here than it is for the schools. Page 2, again, complete the client's name and date, and then add the dollar amount for evaluation and for treatment. And those values, again, are obtained from the TCS coordinator, intake coordinator. And you'll obtain the appropriate signatures and complete the remaining information requested here. Now, in long-term care, the client is sometimes unable to sign or can only make a mark on the paper. In such an instance, it is acceptable for a senior staff member, or for example, a nurse or a social worker, to sign as a witness to the client's consent. When witnessing, have them print and sign their name and credentials adjacent to the client's signature line and be certain that the date is included. Again, the third page is acknowledgement or receipt of privacy notices, and that's to be given to the client or guardian at the time of their signature. Again, in the event if a client is unable to sign, can only make a mark, this can be witnessed by a senior staff person, and you'll obtain the appropriate signatures. And once again, after seeing the client, complete the bottom part of page 2 with all the information to be provided. And the date that you enter here will become the client's admission date in Doc Tracker, and it should be the date that you actually saw the client for assessment. So once the consent and acknowledgement of receipt of privacy notice forms are completed and the client's been seen for assessment, with the bottom part of page 2 completed by the clinician, these pages should be faxed by the clinician to the TCS office, to the intake coordinator. This applies to all the schools and long-term care. The TCS fax form is included in the clinician's field kit, or it can be printed off from the employee resources section of the TCS website. Note that the appropriate fax numbers are included on top of the fax form as shown. It's recommended that the clinician wait for verification that the fax was successfully sent. And once the consents and the receipt of privacy notice pages are received and processed by the TCS intake coordinator, client information will be uploaded to the clinician's Doc Tracker. And the clinician will be able to access the client in their Doc Tracker following a connection to the TCS server, which will upload the client to the clinician's laptop. And if you're uncertain how to connect to the server, see the video titled Backing Up Your TCS Laptop to the Server. Note that the upload of a client into the clinician's Doc Tracker does not happen instantaneously after faxing in the consents. Reasonable time should be allowed to process the consents at the office and have the Doc Tracker database updated in the server. This usually takes about a half a day or so. And the client database in the server is updated 4 times daily. If it's urgent that the client be set up in the clinician's database, contact the TCS intake coordinator and indicate the need to ascertain when to expect the client to be uploaded. Once the client is uploaded to the clinician's laptop, the consent process is completed, and the clinician can begin entering information about the client in Doc Tracker. So this concludes the presentation on new client consent process.